Larva against HamburgerSasu part number 2 is loading right up. So last time around, I think the score ended up at 2 wins for both players. Last matchup was a Protoss versus Terran, lost by Larva, who was playing the Protoss, but seemingly didn't really know what to do in a matchup. And so they have gone back to Larva playing on the Zerg here, the yellow Zerg, and HamburgerSasu, what I'll call Dukka from now on because that's a little bit quicker to pronounce, Dukka, which is actually the name he uses for his YouTube channel, and with which most people refer to him. Most people don't actually refer to him as HamburgerSasu, just that in the foreign scene, we tend to refer to people by the username they use the most, which is HamburgerSasu. So he's going to clear that one up at the start. He's playing the orange Protoss here on the bottom corner on the other side of the map. So this is already looking somewhat favorable for Larva, because the enemy being far away delays pretty much every single form of attack and aggression by about 15 seconds, because there's just so much traveling time all the way across the map. So the first Zealots will arrive later. The first Dragoons will arrive later. The Expo here on the middle, though, will be timed just on time in case there is going to be a Reaver Robotics proxy here in the front of Larva's base. That will arrive on time. And it means that the shuttle will probably also arrive on time if the shuttle is produced here. If the shuttle is produced within HamburgerSasu's base, though, you can easily tag on another 10 to 15 seconds before it arrives in Larva's base. That gives Larva a little bit more leeway in terms of setting up his defenses, or you can even try to smuggle in a little more drones, a bit more minerals, set himself up for a better economy. But first, of course, the scouting phase. And HamburgerSasu is only scouting the chokes because he knows that Larva is a Zerg, and it's most likely that Larva starts out with that hatchery in his entrance, because they pick their races. So 3 gateways up, spawning up right after the Nexus was started warping in. So he started with a pylon into a Nexus, into 3 gateways and a forge. And then of course the gas comes in, only a single one. Soon of course the cybernetics core will also come in, because he needs that tech, all the tech upgrades and all the tech stuff to really set up a good attack, because with your Zealots you're not going to do all that much. The first chunk comes out here in the front from Larva. I always personally prefer it when they base the sunken here, just so they can put 2 sunkens next to each other and wall the entrance off. But Larva places there in the back, right behind it. A huge wide opening here though for HamburgerSasu to walk through. But I think Larva is going to rely on Zerglings to wall off those Zealots from having entering the base. He started off with a very early pull to get himself gas for the Zergling speed upgrade, which is not all that uncommon, but to a degree somewhat uncommon and unorthodox. We don't really see it all that often. But I think he's going to try to snipe that probe here on the middle and delay the proxy Reaver from being set up here in the front and buy himself some time. At least that's what I'm assuming. I could be wrong. But he's making a lot of Zerglings here. So he's definitely setting himself up to at least overpower HamburgerSasu here on the middle, who only at the moment has 3 Zealots. 3 more are on the way for a total of 6, and he's at the moment setting up the surround, or he is setting up a run-by to go straight for that cannon and for the probes here in HamburgerSasu's base. I'm calling him HamburgerSasu, even though I said I would call him Dukka. Just not used to calling him Dukka at all. And so there he goes, tries to snipe the very first Zergling. He didn't get the probe, but he did invest a lot of minerals into those Zerglings. But now he's going to come in for the surround before the cannons finish up, because he's got to be quick. When the cannons finish up, he's in a bad spot. A couple Zerglings there and idling, but he gets a great surround enough on those Zealots, and I think he will be capable of... Yes, he cancels the cannons, cancels the proxy, and forces HamburgerSasu to retreat back to his own base, where he at the moment is throwing down a lot more cannons, and a robo there as well, because he needs to defend himself against those Zerglings. He's pulling back those Zealots, but will those Zealots get cut out? Looks like they will. One of them gets caught out, one of them manages to slip through, but that one's also going to get caught out by that great micro from Larva. And a couple more Zealots did spawn just in time, and they're blocking off the entrance to those cannons there behind the pylons. Actually, he manages to sneak in and gets a couple of Zerglings on top of the cannons, but he uses the probes, he unstacks the probes and blocks off the 2 remaining cannons, which will make it impossible for Larva to get access to those 2 cannons there in the back, so he's going for that gateway instead. Now he pulls back, wants to preserve those Zerglings because he knows that he can no longer fight. The window of opportunity has closed. Dukkar having a lot of access gas, spends it on armor and weapon upgrades. Also adds on more gateways because he knows that at this point he's going to need a lot of gateway units if he wants to keep Larva at bay. Larva starts off with more economy, added on 2 more hatches to the initial 2 he already had, and has started that lair upgrade, also adding on 2 more gazers because he knows he needs more gas. He is droning up really hard here, only on 29, and here it looks like Larva managed to snipe a single probe because he saw the probe counter go down from 31 to 30. Support base, Citadel coming down there as well. Pylons for a skeleton of his base. He's pretty much a little bit behind on the schedule, I'd say by about 40 seconds because of all the delay that he's been experiencing and the adapting he has been forced to do to defend himself against Larva. Larva still only has a single sunken there in the front, so he really has managed himself to save a lot of minerals on sunkens. But do keep in mind, all those minerals he saved on sunkens have gone into Zerglings. But the Zerglings, though, achieved some real results, so it was definitely worth it. Also, now adding on even more hatcheries there. Evo Chamber, Spire, so no Hydralisk then. He's going straight for Scorches and Immutalisks, going for the Immutalisk Micro because he knows that Dukkar's, I am catching myself doing it wrong again. Dukkar's only real option of attack is Zealots and Shuttles. He is getting Dragoons now though, Dragoon range, but no Dragoons queued up yet. But the first wave of attack is going to be Zealots, Reavers, and Shuttles. And looks like Larva spots it out with his Zerglings there, tries to snipe the probe, gets the probe. Really great micro and awareness there, manages to pick that one up. Now sends out a couple more Zerglings, looking for that second probe to kill, but the probe is protected quite well by those Zealots. Quickly throwing up more Sun Guns there. He doesn't have his Spire finished yet, so he might actually be a little bit behind on schedule here. Looks like Dukkar managed to beat him to the punch by just a little bit. Zergling speed now also finished up. Reaver and the Zealots now running into Larva's base. Larva's Spire has finished and his Mutalisks are on the way. But it's going to take a while before those Mutalisks arrive. Because this front here has been taken over. He is being a little bit conservative with that Shuttle and the Reaver. He doesn't want to go in just yet. Now he goes in after he takes down all the Sunkens in the front. He's a couple alive. Drones are spreading up. Then the Mule is just now finishing up. The Shuttle went down. I don't think the Reaver got all that many kills because he actually managed to unstack his drones and block the Scarab from having access to the drone he was targeting. So now the Mules are hammering away on those Zealots. They're spawning as well, but those Zealots are taking such a long time to go down because Mules don't actually deal all that much damage with their 9 damage on that attack, and has already level 1 armor, but it's 2 armor in total on the Zealots, preventing themselves from dying all that quick because they only take 7 damage from those Mules. And look at them, they're still there wreaking havoc. I think they killed a couple of drones with mostly Zerglings and a Spore, and they killed the Spire there as well, which means that now Larva is stuck defending without being able to produce any units but Zerglings. He's getting level 1 upgrade for his Hydralisks, but he doesn't have any Hydralisks. He managed to snipe the Shuttle there. That's a great micro there from Larva. So he's at least getting some use out of those 12 Mules that he does have. The Sunkens in the front, though, are going down, and the Dragoons are protecting the Reaper from the Mutalisks. It's going to take a while before he's back at capacity to produce units. HamburgerSasu, Dukkar is playing this really well, throwing out more gateways, producing non-stop, and putting the pressure up on Larva, who made one crucial mistake of not being quick enough with getting units out. And that has backfired really hard here, because once the Protoss is inside your base, once you have lost that frontal choke, the game becomes significantly harder, because all of a sudden there's this wide open space where all those Dragoons can spread out and pretty much hammer away on whatever they want to attack. Also, he's got all his tech gear in the front as an easy target for Dragoons and whatever Dukka wants to use to attack. So this is pretty easily taken down. So Larva is really forced to only produce Zerglings, Mutalisks, and Hydralisks in the near future as well. Because once he starts producing drones, he's going to lose out on army size compared to ddukkarandom. So ddukkarandom playing this one really, really well. Now, once again, this time it is safe. So this time he does set up that Reaver proxy here on the middle. Larva tries to prevent it from happening, but he is a little bit too late. He does get a great surround on those Dragoons, but the Dragoons market themselves out of the surround. Now, Larva is going for the cannons. He does have enough Zerglings to take down the cannons, but he in the process does lose all of his Zerglings and his Mutalisks. And the cannons are in the back still wind up finishing, and the proxy still winds up being up and ready for production. Already has a Reaver on the way, 5 more robotics here being placed down. But actually really, really, really well played here from HamburgerSasu. ddukkarandom is really showing up here, and Larva is making small mistakes that wind up having huge results because they snowball into a bigger and bigger advantage for ddukkarandom. ddukkarandom almost has level 2 armor and weapons on his Dragoons, whereas Larva only has 0-1. Larva here gets a really good surround on those Dragoons, but those Dragoons are rather beefy because of those upgrades, and I do think he takes down a lot of Hydralisks there. More than Larva would have wanted. Also, the Reaver Shuttle comes in, but the Reaver Shuttle has to unload prematurely, and it gets a shut off, but the Scarab actually winds up killing nothing at all. But that's a great little pickup for Larva there. Extends his life because now he can still produce units. He didn't lose his income, and he does scare off those Dragoons all the way back to the proxy here on the middle. Larva is really holding himself really well with pure fundamentals and a little bit of knowledge about the fastest man. This really goes to show just how good he is on Zerg, but there's a huge but here hanging in the room. He's not even half as big in army size as Dukka is. He is catching up though. Now he is exactly half the size, but his base is small. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hatcheries for production of units. He has 41 drones against 78 from Dukka. He does not have a choke, although he is trying to rebuild it here with those Sunkens, but there's huge wide open areas here on the side that Dukka can use to get a surround or a spread on his units. Larva though does have a couple of Hydralisks there spread around his entrance for a surround to go in. But there's Reavers here as well with 2 armor. The Dragoons have 2 armor and 2 weapon, no shields. Drop comes in here from the side, but the drop gets sniped by those Hydralisks really quickly. Great awareness there from Larva, immediately spotting it out. And yeah, Dukka is just playing this really, really well. He doesn't have a very big base, but he's constantly non-stop spending his minerals. His minerals almost never go above 1500. Now they are though. They almost never go above it. He's been spending really well. Now they're going above it because he's maxed out on supply. He's trying to find himself an opening into Larva's base, but Larva spots the shuttle. He sees two shuttles, 2 drops actually. He's gonna have to take care of 2 shuttles at the same time. He snipes one, snipes the second one, so he's still safe. Storm comes down on Hydralisk, but he dodges it, and Larva extends his life once again. Lurkers are up and running, moving to the front, or to the side. Oh yeah, he's just spreading them out. Was wondering if he was going for an Overlord drop, but I don't know if he has. Oh, he still has it upgraded. Frontal sacks, that's transporting for Overlords. He has Overlord speed finished up, so he's going to try to sneak some of those Overlords through the cracks here and land them on top of Dukka's minerals and kill those probes. But I don't think that's going to really yield much fruit, because there's a lot of Reavers here in the front, and he has to defend this first. He's low on gas. He's got 1 more hatchery added on to the mix now, but his mass is not quite up to par. There he loaded them up over the hill, but that means he's got less units in his base to defend. There is no observer here for Duck. That's quite peculiar, but I don't think he needs the observer because the lurkers are still taking damage from the AoE from those scarabs hitting the Sunkens. So that's actually still happening. I do think he's got an observer on the way now though, because there we see there on the top of the production tab. So observers on the way. They're now trying to circumvent and walk around and play around those lurkers, completely ignoring the lurkers and ignoring the Sunkens here. Larva very quickly and smartly relocates the lurkers. HamburgerSasu now going in from the bottom side here on the left, the right side of space. He did clear out his entire portion here on the bottom side, but he now has to pull back those highlights back into his base to fight against those Reavers. But that's a lot of Reavers. That's a lot of Reavers. 9 Reavers there, and more Reavers are on the way here with the shuttle. He's in for 11. He's got 2 more here for 13 Reavers, and I don't think Larva can actually fight against this. Just have, oh wait, drop comes in, drop lands, 2 Reavers getting shots off on the drones, kills one half of the drones, the other half of the drones also going down, more drones going down, and that is actually the end of the game here because HamburgerSasu manages to win the game with that drop, although he would have nonetheless won with this Reaver push protected by the Dragoons here on the bottom right side of Larva's base. And I think Larva played this very well, but he made one tiny mistake of trying to get a little bit too big too quick and forsaking his choke, not really getting it up and running well enough despite having the information of what HamburgerSasu was doing, because he constantly had his Zerglings in HamburgerSasu's base here. And thus, game number 5 ends, and it's won by HamburgerSasu, aka ddukkarandom. So without further ado, let's go on to game number 6. Game number 6 is not that different from game number 5. We once again have Larva playing the Zerg because I assume he wants to play something he's familiar with. I assume he wants to win on the Zerg against HamburgerSasu. HamburgerSasu, of course, playing the Protoss, I think on request of Larva, because I think HamburgerSasu would have really loved to play Terran versus Zerg as well. That's a matchup Larva hasn't played yet. So Larva, game number 6, back on the Zerg, Red Zerg here on the bottom left of the map. HamburgerSasu top middle, blue Protoss. Exact same scenario as last game, although it is not exactly as cross-map, it is still somewhat cross-map, which means Larva has a little bit more time than if HamburgerSasu had been right next to him. But I'm more so curious to see what Larva took away from last game. Has he picked up on any cues, any information to adapt his playstyle, his build order, his strategy whatsoever? I want to see what he's got in store. Can he take home another win? Or is this going to be another Zerg versus Protoss loss? He places that hatchery on the bottom corner here once again. I personally prefer to place it here in the middle, because that way you can make a sunken there, a sunken there. Otherwise, you can place the hatchery here and place a second hatchery there, which means you only need one sunken behind the 2 hatcheries, and you use an egg. Like you move the larva over in between the 2 hatcheries and you make an egg here, and you keep the opponent out. That's also a very viable strategy, but you do stand at the risk of losing 600 minerals with 2 hatcheries here in the front if it goes wrong, or if the opponent gets a proxy Reaver up here in the front. So the investment, there's two sides to it. One, you invest less on the sunken because you only need 1 or 2 sunkens instead of 5 or 6, but you have a hatchery in front, which is not that beneficial in my opinion. So it's a hatchery here in his base, nice and spaced around, pretty much doing the standard stuff that he has to do. That's another drone. Overlord has finished, and I assume he's going to save up 3 larvae to help himself set up that hatchery in the front. The guy is starting off with a very infamous 4 gateway build that actually I never expected to be seeing from him. But that's mostly because 4 gateway build I think is not that strong against Terran. But against Zerg, it's a different story because you have a lot of zealots out very early. And if you can win the fight or catch the Zerg off guard, because the Zerg is expecting most of the time, at least in the Korean fastest map scene, not expecting a lot of units so early. Because he's only even starting with a single sunken, he's now adding Zerglings. But once HamburgerSasu has a lot of zealots, he's going to overrun that front unless Larva picks up on it. This is already enough to fight this and win the fight. He's pulling more drones back to his base. He already has a gas there on the way. This is once again a very, very early gas. Earlier than I would like to see, because I honestly think the Zerg is better off getting more hatcheries first against a Protoss than getting that very early gas. That's just my opinion. Alright, so he saw the base, he sees that there's no second nexus, he sees that there's 4 gateways, so I think he's going to pull some drones up to the front here and try to wall this off and set himself up for a defense. More Zerglings are spawning, he's going to try to get on those zealots, but that's a lot of zealots. Sunken there behind the other sunken is finishing up. Zell Larva is fighting it pretty well, but the sunken in the front is pretty much already dead. More Zerglings are spawning. More Zerglings are being brought to the front, but I think choke here is done for. Because Larva just risked it too hard. But more Zerglings are spawning, more Zealots are on the way as well. Proxy already being set up there because he's placing the pylon there in the front. Larva's trying to micro his way out of a very nasty situation, but he's going to need more Zerglings. More Zerglings are on the way. He's got Zergling speed on the way as well, so he might be capable of doing this. But 4 Zealots that are being microed as well as this is just really strong. The Zealots are the Larva's microing the Zerglings really well though. He's trying to set himself up for a surround. He's going to need a couple more Zerglings before he can fight against all those Zealots. And every single time the Zerglings are going in, ddukkarandom just pulls them back, sets them up in a line, and avoids the surround. So that the Zerglings can only fight single file or double file. Either way, Zealots are stronger than those Zerglings if the Zerglings can't get a surround up. And once again, he sets himself up for it. He lines up those Zealots in a straight line. But this time around though, looks like Larva is going to come out on top because that Sunken there in the back is hammering away and assisting the Zerglings with taking down the Zealots. But the story is not done yet. More Zealots are coming in from Dukka's base, and he's got that first cannon, first cannon, a Robo, and no cannon, just a Robo and a pylon here coming up. Larva sees the number of Zealots with his little Overlord, goes in. Drone cannon is still sickly, disgustingly low though. And Dukka is playing really well. He's microing those Zealots quite well, getting as many kills as he can. But the Zerglings do wind up winning the fight here. But the investment of trying to defend against this is absolutely huge. He does have 3 Overlords here for production in his base, 4 in the front, so 5 hatcheries in total. But his drone count is only on 9, which means that he cannot drone up that quick, he cannot build up all that quick. All he has is Zerglings, and looks like Dukka is really already somewhat fine. No, yes, yeah, it looks like he's fine because he's gonna get this cannon up, and the cannon there in the back is not only just his cannon, but he only needs this one cannon because he can use his Zealots to block off access to the cannon and protect the cannon, which he's doing now, and he's winning that fight quite handily because the Zergs have to fight into tight spaces, and Zealots are simply way better in tight spaces than Zerglings are, because Zerglings can only fight single file into tight, narrow spaces. It's really well defended there from Dukka. Now means that Larva has to start droning up really quick, wall of his front really quick, which he isn't doing once again, just like last time. He'll try and lose his Zerglings though to at least get something done. But Dukka is not leaving anything up to chance because he's pulling more. He's still got 2 cannons there. He's moving out with his Zerglings though, which now means that Larva is going to try to snipe that tech here, but the cannons in the back are protecting the tech just within range. Zealots have pulled back also. Zerglings here are just toying back and forth. Larva is still droning up. He's got a Hydralisk den now. Still no Sunken in the front, so still rather exposed. Actually, I think that Dukka can just go for it now. He doesn't know, but he can just go for it. Set that probe out into the middle, ready to scout the front here to see what's up. Still being forced to defend against those Zerglings. Doesn't want to lose those cannons, doesn't want to lose his probes, because once he loses his probes, the game can somewhat flip around in favor of Larva. Larva now has more drones, though he's also making Sunken here in the front, so he has been recovering. This is all because Dukka has only gone for that +1 Nexus. The played on a single Nexus and gone for a very late +1, so his probe count is rather low. Would take him up until about. Well, he also lost some probes, of course, in the process, so his probe count isn't as high as it would have been had he not lost probes. But still, it takes about minute number 10 to hit 41 or 44 probes on a single Nexus. It's a very tedious, slow process. Zergling's still there in his base. Looks like he's gonna go for the attack because he just finished up his Zealot Lags, which was what he needed to fight. He also has level 1 weapons upgrade almost finished up, but Zerglings have finished here. Hydralisks have finished here for Larva. Sunken's there as well, but Dukka actually gets a great surround on those Hydralisks. But I don't think those Zealots will be enough to win the fight here because there's a lot of Sunkens, a lot of Hydralisks. He just tries to snipe that hatchery there in the front to at least take away some production. He does so very well, but Larva comes out on top in this fight. Larva now 29 drones, 31 probes from Dukka. Dukka has a Reaver, double Reaver up actually. Shuttle as well, still producing only from 4 gateways because the economy is still rather small. Larva now adding on one more hatchery, setting up his defense against shuttle drops with those Hydralisks. Looks like Dukka though is going for the frontal attack here with the Reavers and the Zealots. But I think he isn't big enough, not yet, to win this fight against Larva, who has about 20 Hydralisks, more Sunkuns here on the way in the front. And the Sunkuns are a tiny bit spread out, which means that every single time those Reavers can only hit one Sunken, have to travel forward a tiny bit, but also means that the Zealots have to actually run in all the way for maximum efficiency. If the Sunkens are very close to each other, Zealots just take them down really quick because there's almost no traveling distance if Sunkens are close to each other. Reavers also can hit 2 Sunkens at the same time, or sometimes even 3 of them, depending on how well they're spaced or placed. Yeah, Larva tries to get that shuttle, tries to get the Reavers, but the Zealots go in to protect the Reavers. Really well played from Dukka there, protects the Reavers. Also had the shuttle hanging above. So he overextends a tiny bit too much, but picks up the Reaver and saves the lives of his Reavers. And yeah, more Hydralisks are slowly spawning, more hatcheries are slowly being added on here for Larva. Larva goes in for the attack, manages to not snipe the shuttle or the Reavers, which now means he's forced to pull back once again. More Reavers are in the base here for Dukka. He's got Dragoon range on the way, Storm on the way as well, level 2 weapon upgrade almost halfway done. And he's got Scarab damage upgrade on the way as well. So he's really setting himself up for good tech. Setting cannons up here in the front as well. Larva either has to hit and attack very soon or he's going to die. But yeah, 4 Reavers down here in the front. That's a very, very bad omen for Larva. Also 2 robotics being placed there in the proxy on the middle. 36 drones, 51 probes. Lagoons now on the way. Observatory also on the way just in case Larva has lurkers. Level 1 attack upgrade for Hydralisk finishing up. More Hydralisk on the way. They're also being morphed in. So yeah, it is either going to come down to Larva gets a really, really great, actually super great counterattack here on those Reavers with the Hydralisk spread and surround, but it might just backfire completely. He goes in, doesn't manage to kill any of those Reavers, actually killed 1 Reaver, with 3 Reavers still alive, and he lost about 10 of his Hydralisks and didn't get all that much results for only a single Reaver. But he does slow down the push. But his gas is still low, his base is actually, in theory, almost as big as Dukka's base. Has more production capability though, because Dukka only has 4 gateways, and is mostly relying on those robotics, which he only has 5. There's 1 more is being warped in here for number 5, but he has 4 at the moment. But his supply count is rather big. He also has 62 probes, so within a minute or 2 or 3, he can become a very big ddukkarandom. It's just a race against the clock now. Who wins the race against the clock? I hope Larva does, because he does have about 9 hatcheries in total for macro. He can get big really quick. He also has Carapace level 1 and attack level 2 for Hylas on the way. Lurker aspect there also on the way. But oh, that's a really nice move. Putting Dragoons there on the hill to snipe those Overlords, denying a little bit of supply space. And he goes in for the attack, but the Reavers have Scarab damage upgrade. And I don't think he's gonna kill all that many of them. He does kill 3, 2 more are alive, picks 1 up. And the shuttle goes down, which now means he can get Reaver number 3. So he shuts down that frontal push for at least another while. Really well played there from Larva, but he did lose all of his Hydralisks in the process. And now it's going to take a little while to get all those Hydralisks back. He did add on more of those gas buildings though, so his gas should be fine. And he's got more Hydralisks now spawning. So getting a spore there on the side. Gonna get a spawn there on the top side as well soon. 61 drones now. Larva is hitting critical mass, and all he needs is now a velocity fast enough to overrun and win the fight. But there's now 4 robotics here in the front, gateways being added on as well. And Dukka is getting pretty scary here. And on a third nexus as well, because he wants more of the gazers being mined from there on the top. As shuttles, he's got a storm drop in the running as well. So if he lands that storm drop, the game should be over for Larva here. It should be over for Larva if that storm drop hits. Also, 5 Reavers once again here in the front. It's a really strong pushing potential. But 130 supply here for Larva. More overlords are on the way, so we can spawn more of them. The Lurker's now grading as well, almost finished up. Ready to set himself up for the attack, but he goes in with those Hydralisks, but that's a lot of Reavers, and he loses only a single Reaver in exchange for 12 or 10 Hydralisks. Not entirely worth it, but he does have the production to keep up. Observer is also on the way now for Dukkar. So he can spot those Lurkers out very soon, but the Lurkers are mostly just there to deal with the Zealots that are gonna run into those Sunkens, and perhaps a couple of Dragoons as well. It's mostly gonna come down to the Reavers doing the hard pushing work. Templars now also arriving on the scene. It looks like a drop is coming in here from the bottom side. He's gonna fly into those spores, but there's nothing in between those spores and the minerals. So he goes in, drop flies in, none of the shuttles go down. One of the shuttles goes down, but he managed to unload both Templars, gets a storm up on the drones, and Larva loses all of his income, and he's only at 300. And no, he's only on 21 minerals, and he's facing a huge, massive push potential there from the front. And I think there's, no shuttles left there, no Templars left in his base. He does have a couple of units spread around his base as well, so it's gonna take... That's 40 drones. It's gonna take a while to get back all the drones that he lost, because he lost a lot of drones there to the storm, and his economy is in tatters. And Dukkar has almost pushed through all the Sunkens and Lurkers here in the front, and his mass is really big, and of course he also has level 2 and 1 upgrades. Larva also has the same level of upgrades, but those storms are absolutely monumental, taking down and shutting down all the Hydralisks within only 2 storms. Larva forced to pull back. 52 drones now on the minerals, -4 mining gas. Still, he does have 2,000 gas, so he can potentially make a lot of Hydralisks, but I think the game is over here. I think this is a done deal. HamburgerSasu takes home game number 6 for a score 4-2. Larva played that really well, but one single mistake of not being aware enough with the shuttle drop, or not setting himself up with a good anti-drop defense by placing some Lurkers or Hydralisks around his main to keep his drones alive, cost him the game. And I do have to note, one of the greatest weaknesses amongst pro players who play fastest is their awareness to shuttle drops and storm drops, because it's a skill that you learn specifically on fastest map. It is something that's specifically very important on fastest map, much less so on the normal maps, where your workers are always spread out, and it's easier to spot out those shuttles, and it's easier to keep your workers alive. In normal maps, your drones are not stacked up. So it's really a skill they never really develop up until they start playing fastest map a lot. For example, look at Mong, he's become really good at it. Or Brain, who's also become really good at it after his history in the regular map scene. So that's game number 6. One more game up in the chute. Well, let's move over to game number 7. For game number 7, Larva wants to try one more time. And I'm going to spoil it, this is the last game. So that might also already spoil the end result. But given the video length, you would have already figured that one out. So I'm not spoiling anything. It's going to be fun to see whether Larva can pull it off, or whether he's going to fall short. So yeah. Pink, Zerk, middle right. Blue Protoss, top left corner. HamburgerSasu, ddukkarandom, against the one and only Larva, who has not yet been able to take home a Zerk versus Protoss win against the powerhouse 1 versus 1 fastest player, ddukkarandom, aka HamburgerSasu. So this has been a rather interesting series of events. And as far as I know, this is the only set of replays of Larva playing fastest 1 versus 1. So I'm quite happy I've got my hands on this one. Yeah, plays a Sunken there up on the top side. Once again, I prefer it here on the middle so you can make sunken there, make sunken there, and pretty much wall off your entrance to a certain degree. Zealots can still walk through, but it's easier to defend than defend a wide open hole here or a wide open hole there. Dukkar this time around starts off again with the +1 Nexus. Not going for the same gateway strategy that he did last time because I think he felt it backfire. And had Larva played it slightly differently, he would have probably won the game. Had Larva had a little bit more awareness against shuttle drops or defense against shuttle drops, he would have most likely won the game. That was actually way closer than it appeared last game. Larva was really close, which is really impressive, given his lack of experience and knowledge about the fastest map, and the fastest map rules and strategies. So Larva has impressed me. He has been adapting and has been showing improvement over the course of only a 7-game series. So yeah, the same story as last games. Starts off with the hatchery in the front, pool, hatchery after the pool. And of course, 1 drone to the front, 2 drones to the front, may still sunken in the back behind the hatchery. Not a fan, but it does add some distance for the zealots to travel before they can hit this. So they have to like walk around, then they can hit it. But it does leave a wide open area here on the side that the zealots can pretty much just walk through and ignore the sunken and go straight for the drones. Larva once again going for zerglings. He needs a couple of zerglings to defend himself. He already added on a second hatchery this time around and no gas. So it looks like he's learned something, that perhaps going for early gas and going for early speedlings is not always the correct answer. Scouted the middle, sees nothing on the middle yet. He is soon to be finding Dukkar's base. Dukkar has already found the choke here of Larva with his probe, so Dukkar is already heading in the right direction. Larva soon to be spotting Dukkar's base, but his Zerling has cut out, but at least he knows where Dukkar now is located. But he does lack the information of what Dukkar's build order is, so he can't really appropriately set himself up. The Zerling though might still get in there and get himself information. Total of 3 assimilators there for Dukkar. He already has a cyber core on the way and a pylon soon to be made here on the middle, but I think Larva's going to try to snipe that probe. He's going in, he goes back, and no, he weaves back and forth. And Dukkar very nicely responds by clicking his probe on the minerals so it can phase through his zealots and run back to base to safety. Still trying to go back and forth, moving to the zealots. Zealots gonna try to protect it. I always think this is an interesting micro mechanic, interesting micro interaction here of the probe trying to stay alive, moving back and forth, zealots weaving back and forth as well, trying to keep it alive. There comes the first cannon. Larva still didn't get that zergling speed and is not investing that heavily in zerglings. Instead, he's going straight for sunkens. I'm liking this adaptation from Larva. Still a wide open hole here for HamburgerSasu to walk through. But at least the sunkens are behind the hatchery, which you can somewhat wall off with those zerglings. But I'm not a huge fan of keeping this wide open hole here. Is this going to be a sunken or an evo chamber? What is this going to be? Larva 20 drones, Overlord on the way to improve or increase his supply block. There's the hatchery already being morphed. Robotics already up and warping in for ddukkarandom. 34 probes, 31 drones. Dragoon, no, he's going for air upgrades. He's going for a Stargate. He's going for Corsairs. He wants Corsairs into the mix. That's a first in this series. I haven't seen him going for Corsairs yet. So level 1 weapon upgrade for the Corsairs means he'll have level 2 upgrade at about 10 minutes or 9 minutes. 10, 12. I'm not entirely sure. About 10 or 12. In between, he'll have level 2. And that's going to take down Mutalisks and Overlords really quick. Mutalisks are gonna be, I don't want to call it a requirement, but he's gonna need something to deal with those Reavers, because 4 robotics here on the middle is a lot of Reavers very quickly. Zealots still streaming in very slowly. He's got a Citadel of Doom being warped in as well, support bait there, 2 being warped in, burrow upgrade on the way for Larva. Level 1 Needle Spine upgrade for Hylotus on the way, Hylotus speed also on the way. He's got 4 hatcheries this time, if you don't count this one and the one that it choke. But of course they do count, they do contribute to the macro. Though he's not using this one. He's not using it. We could have made a small, yeah, he's using it now. He's making some more drones there. So Dukka is doing the standard stuff. He scouted the base with the Corsair to get himself information of whether he should shuttle in those Zealots or not. And then shuttle in those Reavers or not. And because he spotted pretty much everything that Larva had in his base with those Corsairs, he's not going for the drop just yet. He's waiting for one more shuttle and waiting for 2 Reavers before he goes and flies in to threaten the workers. 38 drones now for Larva. He's pretty tight. He's sitting pretty tight on his income. 50 probes already for Dukka. Hasn't missed a beat with his probe production. Templar's Archive also on the way, still only on 3 gateways. His gateway count is really low, but what matters more is his robotics count. He's adding on even 3 more robotics for a total of 7. 8 robotics. That's being very robotic heavy. He doesn't need those gateways at all. He just needs Reavers, more Reavers, and even more Reavers. And a little bit of abuse here on the sides with those Corsairs to kill the Overlords, or keep the Overlords at least boxed inside the walls to prevent vision. Just like this one there. This one there is going to do the same thing. Alright, yeah, Corsair almost flies into the Hydralisk, but stays alive. 2 more hatcheries there, 1 more hatchery here. He's going for 7 hatcheries for macro in total. Lost a hatchery there in the front, burrowed up his Hydralisk, but he goes in because he sees that there's no Zealots protecting the Reavers. Goes in, is he going to win this fight? Reavers get picked up, 1 Reaver went down, 2 more Reaver go down. He's going to try to snipe the last 2, but he actually manages to pick up the Reaver just in time and keeps those alive. There's a lot of Hydralisk lost there for Larva. Also a lot of Zealots lost there for Dukka. 2 Reavers also have gone down. But Larva, he manages to at least prevent the push for a while. Also, very important note, if you place Sunkas here around the corner, the Reavers cannot shoot on them, because Reavers are dumb and they cannot shoot on things that they cannot see for some reason. So they'll start tripping out and it slows down the push really hard. So now means that Dukka, knowing this, is making a lot of shuttles. He knows he has to drop somewhere inside of Larva's base. I don't think Larva knows this though. I don't think Larva knows that Dukka is going for the drop. It's only if you have experienced this many times over and over is that you would realize that now the Protoss is going for the drop. And given that Dukka has so many shuttles and Reavers and robotics, he's going to get some really nice drops off on Larva very easily. Larva's Hydralisk count is not yet up to par because he's been working on getting a bigger base, because he knows that Dukka cannot push in at the moment. So he's thinking to himself, I've got myself some nice time. Still pretty much almost nothing here. Pretty much all the money has gone into this. And those Reavers. Stack up those shuttles to make it hard to be sniped by Hydralisks. And he's just gonna cozily fly into the bottom corner here and circumvent and ignore those Sunkens there. Unloads really nicely. Great surround here from Larva. Larva trying to micro his way out of this one. There's a lot of Reavers being microed with the shuttle. And Larva forced to pull back, forced to wait for reinforcements. But he doesn't have a lot of minerals to make reinforcements, and he actually doesn't have a big army. And Dukka, knowing that he set himself up for a very great corner fight here, just leaves those units there, rebuilds the Scarabs, and picks up the Reavers that have just been finished here on the middle, and goes straight back in. Larva setting himself up for a surround, but it's going to take a while before he has the necessary number of Hydralisks. Dukka, almost on maxed out supply, lands in more Reavers. There's a total of 11 Reavers here, 12 Reavers, and they're being microed really well by multiple shuttles. He's picking them up, preventing those Reavers from that. That's really beautiful shuttle micro there with the Reavers, and he's gonna go in for the slow push, and this is when Larva needs Mutalisk. There's nothing that can attack air except for a single Corsair that's hanging here on the side. Those Reavers are pushing in so quick, and Larva is like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? What do I do against this? What the fuck is going on? That's what Larva's thinking right now. Dukka is really showing his diversity as a Protoss player. I've never really seen it done exactly like this, but this is really well played, really smart as well. Mowing down the lawn here, and Larva taps out, calls GG, because that game is definitely lost. And Dukka really shows up in this match. I mean, it's already very hard to play Zerg versus Protoss against on this level, because Protoss play to the maximum of its potential on fastest map is just very, very, very extremely difficult to beat. Even a superior player can lose against an inferior Protoss, whereas an superior player losing against an inferior player on a Zerg is very unlikely. It's pretty much the only matchup that's as heavily skewed in favor of the Protoss as any other matchup is. Terran versus Protoss or Protoss versus Terran is way more equal than Protoss versus Zerg. It's a very difficult matchup, and winning it is, in my opinion, a greater display of skill than the Protoss ever winning this matchup. But yeah, Larva came very close, not close enough. He tried to mix it up, tried to do something different, but Dukka read it really well. He read the situation amazingly well, and just lands the Reavers inside of Larva's base. The score ends up 5-2, and I guess it was a best of 7. And Dukka takes home the win and shows everyone that really he is really good at fastest map 1 versus 1. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this series. This was part number 2 between Larva and ddukkarandom, aka HamburgerSasu. I hope that in the future Larva dips his toes a little bit more into the swimming pool of 1 versus 1 fastest. I doubt it, but I hope he does, and I hope that I can get my hands on those replays as well. Because Larva is quite an interesting player. He does have some smart moves, but he mostly just needs more experience. And I honestly hope more pro players go down the same route as Mong went down, because Mong is now playing pretty much 99% fastest since the last month and a half, and he's shown huge jumps of improvement. Regardless though, I'm going to end the video here. See you next time, and have a good day.